The ACC was one of the more interesting conferences in 2024 because you brought in a number of new teams. One of those made the college football playoff. And this year, I feel like it's still an interesting conference, even without some of those teams coming in. You don't have anybody leaving or coming in. And we're going to take a look at one big question for each school. We'll take a look at what they're looking to do in 2025, what expectations to be, some of the new faces, whether that's coaching staff or transfer portal player related. We will take a look at all that. And like I said, take a look at what each team is looking for in terms of a big answer. Before we do that, though, make sure you subscribe to the channel. It goes a long way to help the channel grow. We're looking to get 10,000 subscribers by the end of the year. So your subscription makes a huge difference. Like the video, share the video. Again, it goes a long way in helping this channel. We've seen tremendous growth over the past year, and we're looking to have an even bigger year in 2025. So let's dive into Boston College. Bill O'Brien has some work to do. Thomas Castellanos is gone. You look at maybe Grayson James is going to take over there. Dylan Lonergan from Alabama comes in. We'll see what that group looks like offensively. It'll be maybe a different look offense, and maybe you have a little bit more opportunities in the pass game. The defense is full of sleepers, so that could be a group that's really fun. And when Boston College has had good years, their defense has been full of guys that get after it defensively. So maybe that's what they have this year, even if the offense can't get things going. Cal is up next. Can the running backs make up for the quarterback departure? Fernando Mendoza goes to Indiana, and it means that the rushing attack maybe has to step up in a little bit bigger capacity in 2025. We'll see. Devin Brown comes in from the transfer portal from Ohio State. I think a lot of people are expecting him to take over as QB1. You also get Jay Knott and Javion Thomas back, and they had overall, I think you'd say a disappointing year in 2024, but these are guys that combined for over 1,000 yards and 11 touchdowns. That number could be 2,000 if they have the right fit, and if this offense can be what it shows in terms of potential. You're looking at a rushing attack that could be very dangerous. Devin Brown also, I think, takes a little bit of responsibility for that. His ability to stretch the defense and take some defenders out of the box could make a huge difference. Next is the Clemson Tigers. The biggest question I think for everyone wants to know is, are they a title threat? And we're talking national title, not ACC. They won the conference last year, and I think that they are looking past that. They are looking for national championship. I don't want to say national championship or bust because I think they have some questions to answer, but this is a team that definitely has the talent to win a national title. Cade Klubnik was playing really well down the stretch, and that's something that we didn't really expect. I don't think a lot of people anticipated, especially after the first game against Georgia. Found his confidence. We'll see if he can take that next step and develop and be a better quarterback in 2025. Antonio Williams, TJ Moore, and Brian Wesco should make his life easier, should make his life very, very easy if you're the passing attack in Clemson's offense. And I think that when you're looking at Garrett Riley and what he wants to do, he has a lot of confidence in his quarterback. The running back position, I think, is going to be settled relatively quickly, even with Phil Maffa gone. But the passing attack should be really fun to watch. The defense is absolutely stacked. The defensive line is one of the best, if not the best, in college football. Defense overall should be a great. Tom Allen takes over as the defensive coordinator. So you feel like all the pieces are in place to make a run, to put Clemson back on the map nationally, and that's going to be really fun to watch if you're a Tigers fan. Duke has some questions. One of the questions is who's going to be their quarterback. You brought in Darian Mensah for $4 million a year, so you feel like he's going to be the answer. You paid quite a bit to get him. Malik Murphy had a solid year, I think, overall for Duke, and now you have some higher expectations of the quarterback position. Maybe Mensah is going to make that happen. I think that you see the potential as better than what Malik Murphy brings to the table, but we'll see. It's just 1 year of Mensah at Tulane. Playing in the ACC is a bit more challenging, but if he's the answer, this Duke team is going to be really fun to watch. Florida State, the biggest question and probably the most obvious is, can they bounce back? This is a team that I think that people put big expectations on this Florida State team because they saw what they were doing in the transfer portal and thought, oh, well, this team went 13-0 the year before. Now they're looking to compete for a national championship again. And I don't necessarily know if that was their expectations or if they were just getting expectations put on them by everyone else. I don't think this team was ever going to compete for a national championship last year. The 2-10 season is very disappointing overall, but I think you shouldn't have expected them to compete for a national championship. That just wasn't going to happen with the amount of talent that they lost. So we'll see what happens in 2025. Thomas Castellanos feels like a good fit in Gus Malzahn's system. You also bring in Deuce Robinson and Squirrel White. We'll see what those two can do in this offense. Are they the answer? I don't necessarily know. You also get a new defensive coordinator in Tony White. So I feel like Mike Norvell didn't sit back after a 2-10 season and just say, let's just see what happens in 2025. He went out, he made changes, and that's huge for a team that, again, is looking to bounce back from a really tough year. Georgia Tech was one of the surprise teams in the ACC. This is a team that definitely shocked a lot of people by beating that Florida State team at the beginning of the year. Can they do it again without a surprise? I think that's a big question if you're a Georgia Tech fan. Who's the go-to wide receiver is probably another question. Eric Singleton is gone. Malik Rutherford appears to be that new guy that's going to be the go-to guy potentially. Maybe Eric Rivers coming in from the transfer portal from FIU is the answer. We'll see. Haynes King and Jamal Haynes are back in the backfield, so that feels like it's a good position for this team to be in. The defense, I think, has plenty of talent to be successful once again. So it's not going to be a surprise season necessarily, but this team has the ability to stay where they were, stay where they finished, maybe even take a little bit of a step forward, but it's not going to be a surprise if they do. Louisville is going to rely on the transfer portal once again, but the big question is, will that influx of talent from the portal lead to success? I think that you looked at what they did last year, that transfer portal approach got them to 9-4, and now you do it again. Miller Moss is coming in from the transfer portal. I think he's a really fun fit in Jeff Brom's system. I think that he'll be a really fun player to watch with the Cardinals, and he's going to have to gel with some of these new players. I think you bring in a guy like Bobby Golden, maybe an underrated player that has untapped potential. McKalen Pounders, the former Mississippi State and Memphis transfer, someone who has a lot of exciting talent and should be a really fun player to watch on the offensive line. Wesley Bailey comes in from Rutgers, Denzel Lowry from Old Dominion, Demon Clowney from Charlotte. You have guys that are going to make an impact. It's just a matter of, can they gel with each other? They all have the talent to compete at this level. But again, there's going to be some questions about how do they work together and how do they win football games together. Miami is up next. Is the passing attack ready to repeat? Is probably my biggest question. When you lose a talent like Cam Ward, the biggest question is, how do you replace him? How do you get this team back to where it once was? And it's not just Cam Ward. You lose your 3 top receivers, including Xavier Restrepo. Samuel Brown is gone. Jacoby George. You're looking at guys that I think that were really, really, really good, and now you have to find ways to replace them. I don't know if you necessarily have that talent that's going to be a 1-for-1. You're probably not replacing Xavier Restrepo 1-for-1, but you probably can do it in Dawson's system. Feels like a better fit than what you had at Georgia. So we'll see what happens there. We'll see who's his go-to guy. Is CJ Daniels the answer coming in for the transfer portal? Is JoJo Trader the next star on this team? We'll see. They have a lot of questions in the passing attack, but it's going to be a big determining factor of if they're able to repeat and be as successful as they were last year offensively. NC State is up next. Who are the alphas on defense? I think you have some easy ones to pick out right away. Sean Brown had a big year, but can this unit be what it once was without Tony Gibson? Tony Gibson is gone now, and you have to find ways to be successful under new leadership. You definitely have the talent, and I think that this is a team that took a little bit of a step back, but when you look at what they can do, they still have the talent. I think the staff has done a good job of recruiting, and guys like Brown are examples of why they can be successful. So we'll see what happens with this team. We'll see if they're able to continue that success. Defensively, they've had a good run, but is this the end of the run, or are they just going to continue finding guys? That's going to be a big question. North Carolina is up next, and the big question, everybody's got their eyes on Bill Belichick. Can he win at the college level too? We obviously know his success at the NFL level, but can he do it in college? That's going to be a big question. Must compete with, Clemson, Miami, a lot of other teams, honestly. It's not that North Carolina is just going to step up right away and win a ton of games. They're not going to just dominate. You have plenty of talent to worry about in this conference, and there's definitely a lot of room for North Carolina to get better, and Belichick has to prove that he can do that at the college level. He can get them. Will they have the same demeanor as, will Belichick's staff have the same demeanor as it was in the NFL? You don't necessarily have the same power as he did at that level, So we'll see. I don't know. So far, it's been different for sure, but we'll see if he has the ability to adjust and get this North Carolina team back to where it wants to be. Pittsburgh is interesting. I think the big question for them is, will Eli Holstein have a sophomore slump, or is he going to take a step forward? That's probably the biggest determining factor of how successful Pitt will be in 2025. Over 2,200 yards and 17 touchdowns for him, so you'd like to see those numbers improve, and I think that you can. I think that you saw that he was in his first year as a starting quarterback, and now he has a full year under his belt, and he is ready to show that he can take that step forward. Pitt has a lot of exciting players on offense, and this is a group that could be, once again, really intriguing in 2025. Maybe that sleeper team with how much talent they have coming back. SMU, how do you get back to the playoff? Rhett Lashley has done a great job of building his roster, both through recruiting and through the transfer portal. Kevin Jennings is back. He's QB1. There's no more debate about it. Preston Stone is off to Northwestern, so it's Kevin Jennings' job. You'd like to see his development take a step. You'd like to see maybe him get some more strength in that arm, some more velocity in some of his throws. I think that hurt him at times. He wasn't able to make every single throw. But it'll be fun to see what he can do with RJ Maryland. You didn't get to see them play a ton last year because Maryland got hurt. RJ Maryland is one of the best tight ends in college football. The defense obviously still has big pieces. The defensive line has a lot of turnover. But again, there's pieces that are coming back that can get them back to the playoff. They're not going to surprise people like they did last year, but I don't think they necessarily need to. I think that they were able to win football games. People were aware of what they're capable of doing, and I think that they can do it again even without that surprise factor. Stanford has some big questions, one of them being who's the go-to pass catcher. Elik Ayumanar is gone, and how do you replace him? How do you replace a guy that was at times your only offense? Ayumanar was one of the best wide receivers that we didn't talk about a ton, and he is, I think, going to be really fun to watch in the NFL. Emmett Mosley is coming back. He could be an option. Maybe C.J. Williams coming in from Wisconsin. They have definitely options at wide receiver, but who's going to be that go-to guy? Who's going to be the quarterback? That's going to be a big question for this staff to figure out, but I think you have some big questions all over this roster, but I think that Stanford is a team that is flying under the radar, especially in the ACC. So we'll see what happens with them. We'll see what they're capable of doing and how they figure out some of those questions that they have to answer in 2025. Syracuse is another interesting team. Fran Brown did an incredible job of winning right off the bat. He did not waste any time getting this team to a successful position. Who replaces the big guns on their team? Kyle McCord is gone. Aronde Gadsden, LaQuint Allen, and Fadil Diggs are just some of the guys that are departing. You lose a number of key players on both sides of the ball. Replacing them is going to be the big question. I think that the quarterback position is going to be up for grabs probably well into fall camp, but who is going to be the quarterback? That's probably the biggest question. I think you return some good talent at wide receiver, maybe even at tight end too, that makes you a really intriguing team. This might be a team that takes a step back, though. We'll see. I think the quarterback position plays a huge role, and some of the defensive talent that you lost was versatile and explosive. So we'll see if they're able to replace some of those players and what that means for them long term. Virginia is a really interesting team because they did not have the success that maybe they wanted under Tony Elliott last year, but they bring in a guy like Chandler Morris. Is he the answer at quarterback is probably the big question. Comes in from North Texas, had a big year, over 3,700 yards passing, 31 touchdowns. Comes into a little bit of a different situation in Virginia, so we'll see if he can handle taking over that spotlight. We'll see if he can take over that offense and gel well with this team, or if he needs time to figure things out. Virginia Tech is another team that has to figure things out offensively. And is Philip Montgomery going to be the answer for Kyron Jones? Is he going to help develop Kyron Jones? That's probably the biggest thing. One of the biggest problems with Virginia Tech last year was the quarterback plays. A lot of potential 2 years ago. You saw his ability to both throw the football and run the football. I think Philip Montgomery brings a good offense that will fit what Kyron Jones does well, and I think that he's going to be able to do a lot of exciting things, but it's going to maybe take some time. And if it doesn't work, then things are going to be real dicey for this team. But Drones in 2024, 1,500 yards, 10 touchdowns, 336 yards on the ground, 6 touchdowns. This is a dual threat that can do some serious damage. And Virginia Tech is a team that right now that kind of fits in that sleeper category. If Montgomery can take Drones to that next level, watch out for this team. And then finally, Wake Forest, the team at the bottom of this list, again, alphabetical. Will the new leadership continue to the efficient success? It wasn't going to get some of those bigger names, and the unique offense that they ran under Dave Clawson was always something that gave them an advantage. Can Jake Dickert do the same thing coming in from Washington State? He brings a ton of talent from Washington State with him. We'll see if that's the formula for winning. I think this is a Wake Forest team that was definitely struggling down the stretch. We'll see if Dickert has the answer to take over and make this team back to what it once was. Again, I don't think you're expecting a conference championship year in and year out, but you're expecting, maybe a 9 or 10 win season every once in a while. You're probably expecting a bowl game every single year at least. This is a team that has very underrated talent, and Dickert has to figure out who is going to fit in his system really well and what he wants to do for the long term. The ACC, like I said, though, very intriguing conference, very exciting conference. If you're not familiar with this conference, definitely worth checking out, definitely worth looking at in the spring. Lots of questions for every single team. Just one of them we went over today for each one. There's more questions for every single team. And it'll be really fun to see how this team fares in 2025. Do they get more than one team into the college football playoff? Does SMU get back? Those are questions that they all want answered. Do they get, like I said, more than one team like they did? They got Clemson and they got SMU. Do they get that again? We'll see. It's a lot of questions for college football in 2025, and the ACC is one of the more intriguing conferences that you should pay attention to this year.